It's so easy to stay within our comfort zones, but the most growth happens when we step outside of them. I challenge you to try the thing that scares you, because on the other side of fear is growth and progress. Hello, and welcome back to the Blissful Mompreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Hall, and I'm so grateful you're tuning in today. In 2019 and 2022, I baby-proofed my small business to not only run without me, but to thrive without me, allowing me to take 2 4-month maternity leaves to be with my babies. Those months were so precious, and they were made possible by the team and systems I'd put in place. Now I'm on a mission to help you do the same. So last week, I released my very first interview on this podcast. And to be totally honest, I was terrified. Leading up to it, I had a constant feeling of doubt. I mean, sure, I've conducted countless job interviews over the years, but I'd never done one for a podcast. I kept thinking, how am I supposed to do this? Imposter syndrome started to creep in. The woman I was about to interview had a much bigger following than I do, and I kept asking myself, why would someone as accomplished as her want to be on my podcast? As the interview date approached, my mind was filled with every fear you could imagine. What if I stutter? What if I forget my questions? What if my nerves take over and I don't actually listen? Knowing me, I'd probably give generic responses to all the insightful things she shares. Basically, I was worried everyone would hear the episode and think, she has no idea what she's doing. One thing that I kept thinking about was what Alex Hormozi says about imposter syndrome. He says that if you feel like an imposter, it's probably because you haven't done the thing enough times to be confident. You need to put in the reps. Everyone starts as a beginner when learning a new skill. And for me, podcasting is a new skill. I haven't put in those reps yet, so being nervous is natural. And I must say that after years of getting comfortable doing the same things in my business, it is both humbling and exciting to try something completely new. Podcasting is stretching me in ways I didn't expect, and it's a privilege to have this challenge at this stage in my career. Something I hadn't realized, though, was how much of my anxiety came from focusing on me. My nerves were all about my performance, my questions, my reactions. What I hadn't thought about enough was focusing on serving my audience. At the end of the day, I started this podcast and this business to give you, my audience, the confidence and skills you need to baby-proof your business, and therefore take the time you need to be with your baby. So I've started to work on a mindset shift. If I focus more on being helpful to you, my audience, and less on whether I'm coming across a certain way, I think I'll be a much better host. With that in mind, I've decided to create a mantra that I'll say to myself before every recording. And the mantra is, you're doing this to serve your people. Just having that little reminder will help put things in perspective. And just like everything else that I do, I'm always trying to systemize things. So I have added saying this mantra as a step in my podcasting SOP. So despite my nerves, my guest Maddie was so articulate and kind. She made my job so much easier. That being said, when I listened back to the recording, I still found plenty to cringe over. My mic was too hot, so the audio redlined throughout the episode. I sounded nervous and I stumbled over my words. And most of the time I was thinking, maybe you shouldn't post this. Maybe this podcasting thing just isn't for you. But I took a deep breath and I posted it anyway. And then I spent some time reflecting on what I could learn from the experience. And here is what I came up with. The first thing that I decided to change was the technical aspect. So I now have added a step to my SOP to check my microphone volume before recording. That way it will improve the listening experience for all of you. Next, I want to focus on asking questions more calmly and being more intentional in my responses. I realize that when I listen to other podcasts, I'm always thinking solely about the content. But now I'm going to start paying attention to how the host asks questions and how they respond to their guests' answers. I want to pick up on their pacing, inflection, pauses, and even body language cues. To keep track of these insights, I've created a Google Doc where I can jot down what I observe. And I'll review these notes before each interview to remind myself of these powerful techniques. One other thing I noticed was the importance of having a bank of great questions. Moving forward, I'll pay more attention to the types of questions my favorite podcasters ask, and then I'll compile them into a document. When I prepare for each episode, I'll review this list, adapt some of the questions to fit my audience, and then add my own spin. As I reflect on my interview with Maddie, I realized that I missed some opportunities to dig deeper on topics that were especially relevant to you. For example, since many of you are preparing for maternity leave, I should have asked her about her experience with maternity leave when she had her second child. Did she take time off? If so, what were the challenges and what lessons did she learn? Asking questions that resonate with your experiences will ultimately create a better show. So I'm planning to make this a focus going forward. And this kind of goes along with my mantra as well. Another change I want to make is to rehearse my questions before an interview, much like how I'd prepare for a presentation. I realize that a bit of rehearsal will help the questions flow more naturally and reduce the chances of me stumbling over my words. And here's something I'm sure many of you can relate to. I need to work on my active listening skills. I've realized that I sometimes have a habit of thinking of my response instead of truly hearing the other person. I'm going to practice listening more actively in my everyday life with family and friends. This will not only strengthen my relationships with each of them, but it will also help me become a better podcast host. So, here's my encouragement for you. Think about something that you want to do, either in your life or business, that you've been holding back on because of fear. Maybe you're thinking, I'm not ready or I'm not skilled enough. It's so easy to stay within our comfort zones, but the most growth happens when we step outside of them. I challenge you to try the thing that scares you, because on the other side of fear is growth and progress. When you finally do the thing, take time to reflect. Think about what went well and what you could improve. Then create actionable steps to get better in those areas, just like I'm doing with podcasting. Improvement doesn't always happen all at once. It happens by taking small, steady steps forward. I'm still in the early stages of developing my skills as a podcaster, but I'm excited to keep learning and growing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this episode inspired you to step out of your comfort zone and try something new. If you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to DM me on Instagram at the Blissful Mompreneur. And if you're pregnant and planning for maternity leave, I've created a free 6-step maternity leave planning guide. And it covers everything from how much time to take off to creating a financial plan. You can find that link in the show notes. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell, and leave a comment below letting me know your biggest takeaway. It helps me reach more amazing women like you. Thank you again for being here, and until next time, keep pursuing your bliss.